Welcome back to another installment, another episode in the Inspiration Sunday series. I'm so excited to have you with me and my beautiful friend and client, Judy Morris, who is absolutely phenomenally amazing, and you'll see why in just a few minutes. I am so glad that she's here to talk to us today. So I'm not even going to bother trying to introduce you because you're just so incredible, Judy. I would love it if you would just share what it is that you do and for who, because I think you are absolutely incredible.
Thank you, Danielle. It's such a pleasure being here. My name is Judy Morris of Judy Morris Coaching, and I'm a transformational coach, and I empower entrepreneurs to have work-life balance and produce miracles in their life by having extraordinary businesses and extraordinary personal lives. And a lot of times entrepreneurs get really caught up in the planning and the goal setting and everything and making the money or having all of that, but then their personal life, their inner life, that inner balance kind of can suffer. So I work with people on really kind of balancing that mental health and that personal deep desires so that they get fulfilled and balanced and have a miraculous life in all areas of their life.
Yes. Yes. See how amazing she is? And you're so right, Judy. Not only have I experienced that in my own life, but in so many of my clients' lives, we get caught up in all of the things that we want to see. We get caught up in all of the goals we want. We think if we just spend another hour on the computer, which turns into another 6 hours on the computer, then, and then everything else suffers. And something that I found out the hard way, I mean, and I'm sure many people watching know, some of you may not know, about 3.5 years ago, after struggling to get my business going and then it being kind of a failure to launch, I had to go back to work. And then about 3.5 years ago, when it still wasn't working and I was spending 40 hours a week at work and then another, I don't even know how many hours I even want to admit in the evenings and mornings and all this working on my business, my husband finally gave me an ultimatum and he was like, look, this is stupid. Like, this isn't working. Your priorities are all messed up. You're focusing your energy and your time in all these wrong places. And he's like, at this point, let's say you do make it to the the level you want. I'm not going to stick around here and be treated like this and ignored basically, while you get there, because so what good is it if nobody's there at the end? And that was really a wake-up call for me. And when I realized that what you do is so beneficial, because we really do need to not only have that balance, but have our priorities in check, man. Like, what good is having all the success and all the money and all the whatever if you've got nobody to share it with, if you don't even know how to enjoy it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times people will come to me, either they're entrepreneurs or maybe they're high-level executives and they're wanting to maybe take their career to the next level. And a lot of times I'll notice that people went to school and they got a degree in something that their family maybe promoted or society promoted because they wanted money and financial security, and then they're unhappy because they're working 80 hours a week and they have all these obligations, and then their health has suffered, or their personal desires or dreams or personal goals have suffered, whatever it may be. And a lot of times even those people are the ones that become entrepreneurs because they decide, to follow their heart or follow some other path for themselves. So, I just, again, work with people to get really clear and honest with themselves about whatever it is that's going on with them, because a lot of mental health situations and physical health situations can kind of go back to, where is the place where we abandoned ourselves? Where is the place where we said to ourselves, who I am is not okay, and I have to be whoever my family says or society says or my culture says, and then in trying to fit into that box and in trying to become whoever we think we're supposed to be to gain love and acceptance from our fellows, then we abandon ourselves and then we become strangers to ourselves. And that has an enormous negative impact on mental health. And we're in a crisis of mental health in this country today, with substance abuse issues at record highs and mental health crises at record highs, with anxiety and depression, mood disorders, there's a physical component to that, but there's also the circumstantial and environmental components to that. And I have to look at the causes and conditions of my dis-ease. What am I diseased about? And where am I living a lie? And I'm not being authentic to myself or my gifts or my truth. And I'm living for everybody else, which that's never going to be fulfilling or sustainably successful, no matter how much money you have. And even if you make all that money as an executive, What good is it if you drop dead at 50 with a heart attack, or you end up in some debilitating mystery illness because of all the damage you've done to yourself? It's not worth it.
No, not at all. It's not worth it at all. And that's what I really dislike about a lot of even just the coaching industry. There's a lot of like hustle culture still, which is, you have to be working this many hours, and you have to be making, if you're not making this much money, then you're not considered successful yet. And it's like, well, I don't think that the only measure of success, the only metric of success should be how much money you're making, right? It's, to me, and I know to you, it's more, how much are you enjoying your life? How much freedom do you have, right? Like that should be the goal. That should be the widespread goal. It should not, yes, obviously we all need money to live. Obviously, the more money you have, the easier things are because you have more choices and more options and da-da-da-da-da. But as you know, and as I know, and many people watching know, if you follow what's true to you, your authenticity and your calling, the money follows. You can't deny that. It just because you are in a vibration of allowing and receiving and doing good, and you're not thinking about, or maybe not thinking about, but you're not focused solely on this one metric that doesn't even really matter, because at the end of the day, when you're on your deathbed, are you going to think about, oh, I'm so glad I made all that money? Or are you going to think about all of the great memories you made and all of the great people you spent time with and all of the things you did with your life? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I started off my career as a Wall Street executive. I was a financial planner for over a decade. And, I had my own mental health crisis. I had depression, and I fell into alcoholism, and I had a lot of my own personal struggles. And when I decided to get well and to get help, because that was, I was killing it at work and I was busy during the day, but then, my personal life and my personal health was deteriorating. I had to get really connected to what's going on with me spiritually and emotionally, that this is what's happening. And so when I started that journey and I started doing that spiritual work and that inner work and that healing work, and then I started volunteering and mentoring others, and in that's sort of what evolved me into this process of stepping away from a career that, again, I spent over a decade in, building a business and doing all those things. And a lot of people thought I was crazy. Like, you're walking away from that financial security and all that. Because I had spent 4 years prior to that as an insurance agent. So I had 14 years in finance. And that's a long, very established career. And in my mid 30s, in that established career, I walked away from all of it to become a coach, to really empower others, emancipation from this lie, and I'm not talking about Wall Street, because listen, being a financial planner was great and I helped a lot of people with their finances, but I'm talking about the lie of something out there is going to make me okay.
Right.
The definition of codependency, my favorite definition, is codependency is needing something outside of myself, whether that's the career or the number on the scale or whatever the result or the relationship, to make myself feel okay. If he or she loves me, if they accept me, if I'm a part of that, if I make this much money, if I get this success, then I'll be okay. And that's this conditional acceptance. And the problem with that is the moment that gets taken away, then my stability, my happiness, my mental health deteriorates, right? So there's a possibility to be whole and complete within yourself, to have a relationship with yourself and your own higher power, where you can experience whatever that connection is to your true purpose, and then have the courage to develop that and have that be expressed in the world, whether that's as an employee or as an entrepreneur or as a stay-at-home mom, or fill in the blank, whatever that is for you. And the pursuit of that and the healing of that and the transformation that comes from pursuing that path of freedom is where that peace and healing and ultimately success will come from.
Yes. Oh, yes. All of it. Yes. All of it. All of it. All of it. Yes. 100%. And this is why I wanted to have Judy on today, because this is so important. This whole topic of, not looking outside yourself. And that's what, I don't want to go into the whole society conspiracy, whatever, but we are programmed to look outside of ourselves. Even the marketing of all of the brands that we know and love are telling us you're less than unless you have this thing or spent this much money on this thing, or, and like I said again, in the coaching industry, unless it looks this way, or you're making this much, or you have this kind of bag, or this big brimmed hat, or whatever the fuck, whatever the thing is that people are saying that you need to be, do, or have, it's toxic. And not only are you looking outside yourself for these things, and then, like you said, as soon as it's taken away, or it's no longer achievable, or whatever, you lose it. But when you're reaching for something like that, the whole time you're reaching for it, you're not enough yet, right? Like, you're losing until you've won. And so why do we want to perpetuate? And I know, and this is why I love what you do, because you're stopping that perpetuation of feeling like we're not enough until we have the thing. Like, no, you're enough. You're right where you need to be. You are who you need to be. And everything you have right now is setting you up for tomorrow. And you'll be enough tomorrow too. And you'll be enough the day after that. And it's about enjoying and being present with who you are today, now, because, life is going to continue to happen whether you're experiencing it or not. Right. And I think the point you were making earlier was that so many people lose sight of the actual reason we're even here, what the point of all of this is, by focusing on and striving for these goals that ultimately don't even mean anything. They're a lot of the time to impress people you don't even like. Like, I don't even ultimately care what this person thinks, but for some reason I want to impress them with this house that I just bought, or this handbag I just purchased, or whatever. It's a complete waste of energy and time and life, really.
Yeah, and it doesn't solve anything. Listen, if I'm sure each and every one of us, if we look at some of the major Hollywood celebrities that were some of the most richest, talented, most famous person in the world, where are they right now? I could name a number of them that are dead, because all that beauty and fame and talent didn't solve them and that worthiness problem. And so they got lost in some addiction or some depression or some illness, and then they overdosed and died. We could make a whole list of, even look at some of the musicians, the 27 Club, these people that were so phenomenal musicians, and then they were overdosed and dead by 27. And again, look at the fentanyl crisis right now. Mm-hmm. Do you know statistically in the United States, there's a higher chance of you dying of a fentanyl overdose than a car accident? Those are the updated statistics in the US.
Wow, that's scary.
And so I mean, that's the level of crisis that we're in. And what is the disease of addiction? Because we were talking about, I had my own mental health crisis that I dealt with, and my own alcoholism. I've been sober now for over 2 decades. I've been sober over 21 years. And so, and I coach a lot of people, and I've worked with people that also, have some of these issues, and helping them work on that so that they can be well enough to pursue their goals. Right. And it's like, what is that thing that's, that alcoholism or that drug addiction or that marijuana or whatever the thing is that, the chatter in your head, that little voice that says, I'm not enough, or I'm not okay, or that anxiety in that little voice. People are using substances to quiet that voice, versus that voice isn't even your voice. I have thoughts and I'm not my thoughts. I have feelings and I'm not my feelings. Where does that voice come from? Maybe a critical parent, or maybe a teacher, or maybe a culture or a religion, right? So that little voice, it's not even my voice. It uses my voice and speaks to me with great authority, but it's not even me. So that's part of, I want to kind of segue over to the land of meditation. One of the critical things about meditation, people have it all wrong. They think meditation is, I'm supposed to get to this nothingness, bliss, ascended state. No. Meditation is so that when you go and you close your eyes for a moment, you can actually see the garbage. Like, imagine looking at the ocean and there's all the plastic and filth rising. If you stop for 5 minutes and take a deep breath and close your eyes and notice the garbage that's floating in your mind, the I'm not good enough, the I have to do this, the I'm not okay, and all the insanity that's going on, I have to learn to get distance from that. I have those thoughts and they're not my thoughts. I have these feelings of insecurity and they're not even mine. I'm bringing them with me from my childhood, from that job that I got fired, from that divorce, from the whatever, all this unresolved stuff that's going on with me. And then I think it's me, and I'm misidentified. So meditation is a courageous act because it's actually the feat of looking at one's self and thoughts and mind and this sort of ego construction that's infested with all these things. And I can get distance from it. Just like an X-ray, when you look, oh, here's what's going on with that. And then like, let's solve that. Oh, okay. Wait a minute. That's not even my thought. Oh, that was from my priest or nun when I was a kid in Catholic school, or that's from my ex-boyfriend from college, or you know what I mean? When we can untangle all this stuff, we can get free from it. And then we can notice, oh, hi, garbage floating. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not, I don't have to personalize it. I don't have to own it. I don't have to merge with it. I can get that distance and then I can get to me. Like our true authentic self is drowning in all that. And that's the point of a coach and meditation, all these practice and journaling and all this, because I got to get distance from that so I can find out who am I and what is it that I even want and how do I even get there? I can't even get there as long as all that garbage is on top of it.
Right. And that's exactly, and for me, what makes me crazy is so many people don't even realize that there is garbage floating, that they don't even know what they don't know, you know? So there's just that education piece of like, no. And I think you're right. I think a lot of people put this like weird look on meditation, like it should be this like only hippie mysticals do it. It's like, no, like it's just sitting and allowing yourself, like you say, to not only in that moment, this is like, it's even bigger than that. Like in that moment, yes, being able to see, okay, yes, I see this and I see that, and that's not me and that's not me. But also it allows, and I know you can attest to this too, because we talk about this a lot, but it allows you to take that into other areas of your life. So in a day-to-day interaction, even after you say something that's kind of, you know, something that obviously was programmed into you, you can go, wait a minute, why did I react that way? Why did I say that? Why was this the judgment that I came to? Like, that's not even fair. That's just, and like you say, it's all programmed from back, you know, from school, from something a parent said, from something a friend said to us, from, you know, something stupid that this is like just a stupid example that just came to mind, but a boy I had a crush on in grade 6 told me that my voice sounded manly. So for years after that, up until actually just a few years ago, I still felt that my voice was gross and people wouldn't want to hear me talking and this and that, whatever. And then I said this to my husband one day and he was like, what are you even talking about? And I was like, I don't know, but this is somebody I thought of fondly, said something nasty to me. And so, I mean, and of course he didn't say it with the intention of ruining my entire speaking career or anything like that. But that's how it played off because it was important to me at the time. Right. And this is the kind of thing that if I had not had meditation and been doing the inner work and been able to pinpoint, okay, so one of the reasons I'm not speaking publicly about what I want to help people with is because I have this weird belief about my voice. Right. So then I started listening to myself talking on like voice memos and videos. And I was like, it doesn't sound manly. It's like a regular voice. People, you know what I mean? Like it was just so stupid. But if you don't take the time to quiet your mind in whatever way that you want to do that and be able to slow down and look at and actually question what's going on. I mean, that's really what it is questioning what's going on and going, okay, is that mine or not? Does that make sense or not? Because I mean, even I have had limiting beliefs that they were developed by me at some point. But then when you look at it, you're like, well, wait a minute, that's so goofy. Like that doesn't even make sense. But like you say, so many people won't even take the time. So for you, I'm curious, what was it that, I mean, was there like one pivotal moment where you were like, okay, this is not working? Or was it kind of like a gradual, like breadcrumbs kind of a thing till you realize that, okay, I need to get help. I'm going about this the wrong way.
Well, I faced a mental health crisis called suicidal depression and alcoholism. So that for me was
no, yes, obviously, yes, no, yes.
No, there was a moment, Danielle, where I hit this in recovery. We call it hitting bottom.
Okay.
And hitting bottom doesn't mean that you're broke or bankrupt or pushing a shopping cart with a needle in your arm. That's not what hitting bottom is. Hitting bottom looks different for every single person. And for me, the bottom was I came to this moment where I realized I either need to kill myself or I need to get help. because I can't live like this one more day.
Mm-hmm.
That was my bottom. And so in that moment, I and I had been doing some research trying to find a therapist to help me, and that's a whole other story. That was a really difficult process to find somebody that was really qualified.
Right.
Listen, not all therapists or mental health professionals are qualified. I don't care if they have a designation or a piece of paper. Right. You really have to do your due diligence and really look at who is this person, and you can go to their website or read their publications or articles or listen to them on YouTube or whatever, like get to kind of know, and don't be afraid to interview several different people. It's just kind of like when you're looking for a coach, find the person that that you have that feeling that, because it's resonance, right? It's something that we have called mirror neurons that can actually identify a lie if we're present enough to actually connect with it. And when you're watching someone on YouTube or you're watching someone on Instagram and you experience that resonance of like, oh, that's so true. Like I feel that in my cellular level, that's the mirror neurons confirming that this is accurate and that it's good information. So you want to have that kind of experience when you're listening to somebody. And so it was interesting. This is how my higher power works in my life. I was in a business networking group. So I had been looking outside for all these therapists and interviewing people, and it was a disaster, and none of it was right. And I was so unhappy. And then I realized I was in a networking group. In the olden days, before Zoom, there were networking groups that you would go to like a restaurant, and they would have a big room in the back where you could actually all get together and share a meal in person and have coffee. I know it sounds very dinosaur, but we used to do that in the old days.
In real life thing? No way. Yeah.
In real life, we used to do that. And so I was actually, as a financial planner, I was a certified collaborative divorce professional, and I would work with individuals who had a settlement after divorce and help them kind of, recreate their lives financially. And, there was a lot of coaching in that career also. I've always been a coach since I was a child. Just was my nature to coach and advise and teach. And so it's no shock that anything I've done in my career has had that kind of essence to it. So anyway, we were in one of these breakfast meetings, and there was one of the therapists in the group, and he had brought an article that he wrote to all of us. And I was reading it, and I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the guy who has to be my therapist. I have that resonant feeling. And I was, a little bit going through some budgetary challenges at the time, and therapy can be expensive, and he didn't take insurance. And so I actually approached him, and I requested that he work with me. And then I asked him, to work out a payment thing with me. And he did, you know what I mean? So the people that are always coming up with these reasons why it can't work out, no, it can work out. I promise you, your higher power. And when I say higher power, let me just be very clear. I'm not talking about religion or God in some traditional sense, like a dude in the sky. Let me break it down like this. The sun came up this morning, and you and I had nothing to do with it. That power that we're on an earth right now that's spinning in space somewhere, and the sun that came up, and the tides that are turning, and the little birds that are singing, and the little hearts that are beating in the animals in the forest, all of that's going on. There's a divine intelligence that's infused in life that's happening. And when I get connected to that force, the force that created nature and the force that created me, I can dial into divine intelligence, and I can start to manifest things. But I have to start identifying myself as this divine essence rather than just this body or this ego. I have a body, and I'm not my body. I'm eternal spirit manifest in this body, but this body isn't my eternal essence. It's more like the vehicle that I'm traveling in this lifetime. Yeah. And so when I got like really serious about getting help, and I was coming from that place, then the universe aligns, and all these things get put in front of you. So this man, God bless him, was just the most incredible person in my life. And I spent 2 years with him just unpacking and dealing with all. I remember one of my favorite things in our sessions. I would sit down with him, and I would be telling him something, and he'd go, wait, stop. Do you know what you just said? And then he would repeat it back to me. And he's like, do you even know what that means? Where does that come from? Blah, 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 blah. And he would explain all this to me. And like, I was just, oh my gosh, I was so on autopilot and I didn't even know it.
Mhm.
And I was out there creating all these messes and I didn't even know it. I thought I was the victim of something externally that was happening to me. And I didn't know that my whole consciousness was on autopilot and was just reenacting generations of limiting beliefs that I inherited culturally, generationally, and it's nobody's fault. But we have an opportunity, especially in today's day and age, to actually get connected to all of these things and do something about it. We're at an unprecedented time where we have resources that our ancestors didn't have.
Right.
We have access to things that they didn't have, and we actually can do the work that they never had the opportunity to do.
Yes, all of it. All of it. I'm just sitting here nodding and smiling. Yes, all of it. All of it. All of it. Yes. 1 million, 1 million, million %. And I mean, as you know, this is one of my, missions, is to have people like recognize they're living on autopilot and to stop doing that. Because like you say, nothing is happening to us. We are unconsciously, for whatever reason, whatever we've been fed, whatever we've been programmed to believe in, all of it comes from where we were brought up, who we were brought up by, how we were brought up, what the belief systems of our parents or, caregivers and grandparents and great grandparents and ancestors. And oh my God, like just all the things. It's like, there's so many factors. And like you say, we are at a time, it's 2023. We have resources. We have access to resources. I'm in Nicaragua and you're in California right now. And we're having a conversation that countless number of other people will see from countless other places in the world. And they're going to tune into this conversation when they need what we are talking about. That's the beautiful thing about divine intervention, like you're talking about. People are, and I believe the same is true for you as it is for me. People don't just find us. They don't just stumble upon us. They are guided to us when they're ready for what we have. That's the power of the work that we do. And that wouldn't have been possible if you and I hadn't, in our individual ways, been even somewhat open to listening to the very faint chatter that was pushing us in this direction, right? Because I believe that there's all these different avenues that life can take you, and it all comes down to the choices that you make and what you're willing to, because it would have been just as easy for you to choose the other option, right? That at the time, I'm sure you thought that would have been easier than going through 2 years of therapy and then this and that and 21 years of recovery and all the stuff, right? But you had a calling to be who you are and where you are now, helping people with exactly what you help them with. I mean, you wrote an entire book. Let's talk about that for a second. You wrote an entire book, right?
I did.
Share with us. Yes, and I got to see the whole thing from behind the scenes, and it was just like one of the most thrilling things ever to witness. Because I mean, just like with anything else, right? We get in our own way. We get the doubts and then, like you say, when somebody else can, then this is the power of working with a coach, right? You step back and you go, wait a minute, I didn't realize that I was putting this limitation. And I mean, I do it to myself. I put this limitation and I can't do this until that. And it's like, well, that's not actually true. You're just making it true so that you don't have to do, whatever thing, right? But anyway, you have written a book. It is published on Amazon. I think you even have the audiobook version up by now.
I do. It's available on Audible and it's also available on Amazon. And the title of the book, it's called Recovered, because it is possible to recover from whatever hopeless state of mind and body that anybody is in. It is possible. And an interesting thing, Danielle, that I don't know if I even shared this with you, but, I started writing when I was really young. And when I was 12 years old, I actually was putting together this compilation of poetry or insights or what have you, because I was writing a lot of poetry in my youth. And it was interesting when I went to dedicate the book, I went back to this book of poetry, and I had written this intro in my handwriting at 12 years old. And that's actually the dedication of my book. It was written when I was 12.
Oh,
and
wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So who is my book for? To every person who's ever felt alone or afraid, helpless or ashamed, I know how it is, and I know how you wish it could be. It will get better if you're willing to do the work. And the only thing I changed on that dedication is the part that I didn't know when I was 12 is if you're willing to do the work. And,
Right.
there's this saying that we teach what we most need to learn.
Yes.
And that dedication, to any person who's ever felt alone or afraid, helpless or ashamed, that was my life. I felt alone and afraid in my family of origin circumstances and the dysfunction that was going on there. And that kind of just translated into when we're young and we don't have this kind of information, we're in a dysfunctional situation, we create these survival skills, right? Known as maladaptive coping mechanisms. It's really great when you're a child, if there's fighting or abuse happening in your home, that you disassociate so you can survive. But then when I'm 30 and I'm in the boardroom and I'm disassociating because I feel threatened by a superior, that's not an effective strategy. So, when we come into program for recovery, but this is all similar no matter what type of recovery or healing journey that we're in, we come into recovery with weapons, and weapons destroy, right? The ego wants to defend itself, protect its position, and destroy anything that opposes it. So we come in with all these weapons, but when we go into recovery, we make this negotiation to trade in our weapons for tools, and tools build. And when I got here, I didn't know how to build. I just knew how to destroy and how to push away and how to defend. And I had to learn how to create, how to forgive, how to heal, how to do things differently, and how to understand that this is all part of such a grand scheme of things in the universe, that my soul is eternal, and that it's on this enlightenment journey. And in each incarnation, all of the players are there to challenge me or oppose me, to reveal more light in my life so that I can become the person that I'm here in this lifetime to be. And without any adversarial things happening, there is no heroism, there is no journey, there is no story. Life is paradoxical in nature. In order to experience heat, we have to know cold. In order to know good, we have to know evil. Both sides of the coin need to exist to even have experience. Otherwise, we would just be non-existent in a little bliss ball in the clouds. So to experience this experience called life as we've incarnated requires that polarity and that ability to go beyond and have that resilience and transform. And that transformation and transcendence is where the freedom and the ascension and that alchemy and that magic happens. And that's what I really want to help people manifest in their lives, is those miracles and that magic, from taking everything and instead of condemning it and rejecting it, embracing it and using it as a launching pad into an unimaginable future.
I love that so much. I love that so much. So is there, in your expert opinion at this point, do you see a common denominator between people who are able to bounce back in resiliency and use it to their advantage, and those who choose to live in victimhood the rest of their life?
100%.
Yeah.
So Dr. Viktor Frankl developed a modality called logotherapy. And what Dr. Viktor Frankl discovered, and for those of you that don't know who Dr. Viktor Frankl is, he is a psychiatrist and an author who was a Holocaust survivor. And he did a study after the Holocaust. Why did some people survive and go on to live thriving lives? Why did some people just give up and die? And why did some people spend the rest of their lives post-camp just suffering and miserable in illness, right? What he did that research, and what he discovered, that a man can survive almost anything if he has a why. So, for example, Dr. Frankl loved psychotherapy, he loved psychiatry, and he loved people. And even when he was in the concentration camps, he was doing healing sessions and therapy work with the co-campers. You know what I mean? Like he was there helping even in his own suffering.
Right.
And so that's who he was. And he was so connected to his purpose and his desire. And so when somebody comes to me and they're like, my dream in life is to, I want to help people, or, you know, I have this on my heart, or I want to be a mom, I love children, and I want to, you know, take care of a child and help other children. People that have this really heart-centered, non-ego driven desire, those are the people that have the highest opportunity to have access to transformation. The sad part is where there's people that don't care about anything for whatever reason, whether they're missing something or they have some kind of brain damage. I mean, you know, that sociopathy, that narcissism that has people not care about anybody but themselves. There's a, you know, that famous quote that people throw around, oh, money is the root of all evil. The actual technical biblical quote is, the love of money is the root, not money.
Right.
If somebody's driven only like, oh, I'm going to go to any length and become a criminal to get money, that obsession with money is not healthy. But if I'm obsessed with helping people and being a good person, then and I'm so obsessed with that mission, and then the money comes with that, there's nothing wrong with that. But I have to be rightly related to my desires. And the miracle method, which is my technology that I created, that I work with people in my coaching program, I work with people to help to determine the difference between a heart-centered desire and an ego-driven desire. And as long as I'm connected to my heart and I'm connected to that why, and I'm operating from that place, everything becomes possible from there. If I'm operating from that ego place, there is no sustainable success. You'll get it, but then you'll lose it.
Yeah. Oh, yes. All the things. And I'm so glad you brought up the miracle method, because everybody needs to know about this miracle method. Everybody, you need to be listening to her when she's talking about this, because it's based in what she was just saying, obviously, but that everybody can live a miraculous life. And we're not talking about you're walking around, everything's covered in sparkles and money like rains down from the sky on you. It's not about that. It's about recognizing that there are miracles within every single moment of every single day. And obviously, the more you can tune into it, the more apparent they become. But I would love it if you would go into a little more detail about your miracle method, Judy, because it is.
Yeah, I actually am going to read you guys an excerpt if you give me just a moment.
Yes, please.
Because it's, you know, if I can, just give me a second.
Yeah, no problem. Absolutely.
And, okay, so I'm going to just read this, please. So give me just one moment. If you pause for a moment and think back on your life, you should be able to recall a time when something happened that was extraordinary, when some divine cosmic energy seemed to appear out of nowhere to help you in some extraordinary, unexpected, and vital way. Perhaps you're aware of how you co-created that miracle by asking for divine intervention, or perhaps it seemed to happen without any action on your part. Either way, you can be sure that miracles don't just happen out of the blue. They happen when we become interested in them, when we become present to the possibility of them, and when we become available to them. Please know that it is possible to live a miraculous life. That nagging Groundhog Day feeling inside of you that's dissatisfied with the hamster wheel you're on, going through the motions of a life you settled for versus the life of unlimited creativity, self-expression, and fulfillment that you always dreamed of, is your soul urging you to take action and wake up out of the trance of automaticity. Your creator didn't intend miracles to be occasional occurrences in your life, such as when you have a child or create a grand piece of art, or when you're in immediate need of aid. You were designed to live a miraculous life, where the extraordinary is part of your daily experience. That's possible. And, you know, I think you might want to share, Danielle, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think part of like a miracle manifestation in your life was even your son. Didn't you say that you kind of struggled a little bit? Like you had this heart-centered desire. You wanted to be a mother and create this beautiful life with your husband, who's your soulmate and your partner. And you guys had this really beautiful heart-centered desire to bring this beautiful life into the world. And then, you know, you had some struggles with that, but connecting to your divinity and your heart, you were able to manifest that miracle, and you have a beautiful son.
Yeah, we did. I mean, a part of it was release of the need for it to happen too. You know, like part of it was making that kind of peace, but also I just knew that I was going to be a mom, you know, I just knew it. And I think for me, I also believe, and you know this about me, I also believe that everything is always happening for us. I believe that there's a lesson hidden in everything. I believe that even the worst struggles are only helping you get to where you need to be. However however you need to learn the lessons, that's how they come. So I believe that one of the reasons we did struggle with fertility and why we needed to go see a doctor and why I needed to go through all of what I went through, partly was for me to learn surrender. Because there's you can't force it, you know, even I mean, we didn't have to go all the way to in vitro, but even that, you know, that's very invasive, but even still, you can't guarantee that it's going to work. And then I further learned surrender after I got pregnant. I'm going to get a little TMI here for a second, but I started to spot. And so, of course, for those of you who have been pregnant or have had a miscarriage, I hope not. But if it is, you know, I went to the doctor and he said, okay, well, it's possible this is what's happening. He's like, I don't know. We'll have to send you from tests. I don't know. But he's like, but you know what? It's okay. Like, it is what it is. This is part of God's plan. I mean, he didn't really say it like that, but you know, he was like, this is part of the plan. And, you know, your body did it once, you can do it again. And he said something so beautiful to me that I'll never forget. And I relate this to a lot of things, but he said, getting pregnant is kind of like getting on a roller coaster. You have to just kind of ride it out and, you know, do what you can. And, you know, it is what it is. So it really was a lesson for me in surrender and just letting whatever was meant to happen. And this is really before I even got into really spirituality or anything. I don't know if even at that point I even believed in God or not yet. Higher power, maybe. I don't know. I had very paradoxical, you know, beliefs or whatever. But yeah, it was challenging. But he is 1000% a miracle. Because from what I was told from the doctors, it was going to be not impossible to make a baby, but very challenging given the circumstances that between the two of us. So the fact that we basically had a 1% chance to make him naturally and then ultimately did end up making him naturally, 1000% makes him my miracle baby. And that kid knows that he was wanted. We tell him all the time how much we love him. But, you know, I do believe that if I hadn't believed that somehow, some way it would happen, I do believe that you can definitely having what you're meant to have by not believing that you're meant to have it 1000%.
Yeah, you know, that really leads into the next part here that I want to just go over briefly. I want to share this stuff with you guys because it's just so powerful. So yes. Remember I was saying that, like, so how do I manifest a miracle? I need to have a heart-centered desire, not an ego-centered desire. So heart or ego. So modern society has taught us to identify with our ego, I, me, myself, and now self-esteem has even been confused with grandiosity. We so strongly identify with self-importance and are so laser focused on our own intellect that we've become disconnected from our hearts. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite definitions of heart is emotional or moral nature as distinguished from intellectual nature, a generous disposition that reflects compassion, love, affection, courage, or enthusiasm, especially when maintained during a difficult situation. We go to school and spend years learning how to develop our intellect. We're taught to stand out, make things happen, become a winner. If our feelings get hurt, we're told, don't be so sensitive, toughen up. There's so many messages in Western culture that tell us to hustle, keep our heads down, and not allow our feelings to interfere with hard work. There are not any messages that encourage us to even connect with our hearts, let alone follow them. And this imbalance between heart and mind has diverted us from our spiritual development. Without encouragement and guidance on the development of our heart-mind connection, we're deprived of the other precious internal assets, such as intuition, inspiration, and faith in the organic unfolding of events. There is tremendous value to connecting our hearts because it is there that our deepest desires reside. When we act from our heart, not our ego, that's when the magic becomes possible and begins to happen. So how do I know if my desire is coming from my heart or my ego? When something is heart-centered, it presents itself softly. It comes as a whisper of intuition. You know, when you get chills or you get tears in your eyes, it's this soft whisper of intuition. And you walk toward it slowly, thoughtfully, respectfully, without wanting to harm anybody in the process. Patience is an innate characteristic that accompanies it. When something is driven by the ego, it presents as loud, demanding, impatient, and is willing to go to any lengths and step on anybody that gets in its way. The ego only desires what's best for itself and doesn't care what happens to someone else. You know, we've all seen those soap operas where you see the person who wants to get ahead and like stab somebody in the back or whatever. That's that impatient, ego-centered desire. So one of the things that I work with my people that through the miracle method in manifesting their goals and dreams is how to get connected to both. It's not about abandoning my intellect and going in the woods and meditating. And it's not about just being some cutthroat executive. My higher power gave me a heart and a brain. And when they're connected, now I have the most powerful ability to make things happen when I can use both. But the mind only works, everyone, when it's driven and connected to the heart. Right. The heart is discounted and it's just the brain. Now I'm in danger zone. I'm in danger of hurting people, doing illegal things. I mean, there's a lot of scary things. And how many people have we seen? Look at a lot of stuff that's going on politically, or we even see stuff that goes on with spiritual leaders. That stuff goes wrong because they got disconnected from their heart and their integrity. And they just started letting the ego get involved. There's a lot of Rhodes Scholars that ended up in prison, not because they're evil people, but because they got disconnected and made too many exceptions to the rule that just got out of control. So it's really important to come back to that place, that integrity, that heart, that intuition, that guidance of my inner self and inner higher power. Then I can use my mind to good purpose.
100%. All of it. Again, I agree with that. This is why I love you so much. We just, all of it. I can't even, I got nothing. It's so good. But one thing I would like, and I'm sure people watching are wondering is, you know, and you kind of did touch on it earlier, but, you know, I deal with a lot of women who are either working in 9 to 5 of whatever capacity, or, you know, are dreading going back from maternity leave to their 9 to 5, or they're just like stuck in that hamster wheel thing. And so you went from like, not even just 9 to 5, like high level, you know, we're talking like Wall Street executive, to being self-employed. So, I mean, with all of, like we were talking about, with all of the way that society programs us to believe that it has to be this way and it should look this way. And, you know, especially like you were saying, people are looking at you like, are you mental? Like, why would you leave? You've got the best possible thing. People want these jobs on Wall Street and you're just going to leave it to go and be like, what, a coach? Like, how do you deal with that? And what did that kind of look like? And how did you overcome everybody just, you know, chirping their opinions at you always?
Well, you have to realize, you know, especially in families that really are trying to convince their family members that, oh, you need a degree and a degree of safety. I'm here to tell you, a degree doesn't mean anything. I know a lot of people and have worked with many clients that have very fancy educations that can't get a job.
Right. So
I'm not discounting education. Education is valid and valuable and has a place in our society, but one only needs to pursue it in service of whatever the thing is. So if you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer, or if you want to be a therapist and you want to go to school and hone your craft and get that, then that has integrity and that makes sense. Or if you're going to go be an engineer or an architect and you need that specialized training and certification, by all means, yes, please go do that. And that's great. But when somebody doesn't want to do that, you know, I had a client, I'll give you a really great example. I had a client who could not stay sober. He had a heroin addiction. He was addicted to heroin and pills and everything, and he just could not stay sober. And we were talking one day, and what I got really connected to with him was he wanted to be a fitness instructor. He was really passionate about fitness, and he loved working out and being healthy. But his dad, who was a CPA and owned a CPA firm, told him, "You're my son, and you have to take over the family business, and you have to get your MBA and be an accountant." And it was like he was going to get disowned from his own family. And, there was all this. This is a really dramatic story, kind of like but it's a true story. So this kid was like going to school for accounting and miserable because he hated every moment of it and didn't want to do it. And then he kept getting high. And I was telling him, I was like, if you don't tell your dad I love you, and if you need to disown me, oh well, because I'll be dead anyway, because I can't live this lie.
Right.
If you don't say that, you are going to die, and then nobody's going to be happy. So you're either going to defy your dad and then have patience and wait for the day that he wakes up and realizes that he's made a mistake.
Right.
Or you're going to keep getting loaded, and because you're not going to be able to stay sober living this lie. One of the requirements of sobriety is honesty. Right. So you can't, if you're keep perpetuating this lie. So again, people get in this thing where they think they have to do, or they've gotten this education or whatever. And it's like, no, you have to get clear with yourself. And for me, I mean, I think everybody has different strengths and weaknesses and different character defects. And, I just really don't care what anybody thinks. And that's a blessing in this particular circumstances. Sometimes it's a curse because I really, truly don't care. But, and I left home at a young age, and it just doesn't matter to me what anybody thinks. But, for those people that really are close to their families and really do care about that, I'm not saying that it's easy. It's not. And I'm here to break the news to you. Life isn't easy, and it's not fair. So if you want to be stopping, we have to get out of that place in ourselves, like a little childhood fantasy. Life isn't fair, and life isn't easy, and freedom isn't free. And the number one and only thing that I need to be concerned about is my own personal integrity. And it's not about self-centeredness. It's about my personal integrity is more important than my mom and dad, than my children, than my spouse, than anything. And I actually write about this in my book too. The thing that interferes with people's relationship with their higher power and the highest manifestation of their destiny is deification of things other than the deity itself.
Right.
If I think my mom and dad is my higher power, or my culture is my higher power, or the religion of my culture is my higher power, or my kids and my husband is my higher power, good luck. I'm never going to be free or happy. I'm just going to be in serfdom and slavery to those ideals. I have to not deify my family, but also not demonize them. It's not their fault. And it's also not for them to have the credit. I need to humanize my family. Nobody's perfect. Everybody's human. And when I take them off of the pedestal of deity and I humanize them, and I can just look at them as people doing their best, and I can step away from this necessity to have them be my higher power, then and only then can I get connected to my true higher self and higher power. And then and only then can I have freedom to be myself. Another story, there's this woman I follow on Instagram who I adore. She's a lesbian, and her family disowned her for being a lesbian. Literally for many years, they literally didn't speak to her. They didn't go to her wedding, to her wife. They disowned her, and she shares about it. She's a real advocate in the LGBT community, and she really shares with the young people coming out. She's really advocating for them and helping them. And guess what happened? I just saw a post recently. So several years after she was married, her family came back. They realized it's not a phase. It's not nonsense. It's not like, oh, she's going through this phase of being lesbian for 10 minutes. Like, this is real. She's really a lesbian forever. It's never going to change. She's married to a woman. They're madly in love. That's not going to change. They're not getting divorced. They're soulmates. They're madly in love. If you look at this Instagram, like relationship goals, like they're amazing. And so the mom finally came to her own realization that, oh, this is not a phase that's going to write itself out. And then she had to face that decision. Either I get off my high horse, or I'm never going to have my daughter again. Guess what? She chose her daughter. But you know how much courage it took for that woman for however many years to live her truth? She would have been on drugs or whatever, jump off a roof if she would have denied her truth and been with a man.
Yeah.
That's where you see all these people, they come into rehab, and what is addiction? People think, oh, they're just addicted to. No, they can't stop getting loaded or getting drunk because they're living some bullshit lie.
Yeah.
And all the trauma and the dishonesty and the codependency and everything is what's driving the addiction. When you get sober, it's not about just alcoholism and drug addiction doesn't live in a needle or a pipe or a bottle. It lives in the lie. It lives in the trauma and the lie that you're running away from. And when you get to the bottom of causes and conditions and you tell the truth and you have the guts to choose yourself, everything becomes possible. And even that became possible. But listen, it's not for the faint of heart. Not everybody's going to take that guts in this lifetime.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. You're so right. I mean, and I think kind of what you're saying too is, like you say, family members and our parents, our friends, our, you know, whatever, everybody is just doing the best they have with what they have, what they know. Right. And a lot of them are plugged into the societal, you know, shoulds and whatevers too. So they're, again, just doing the best they have with the information they have, trying. And I do think that most of them, especially when it comes to pursuing entrepreneurship, they are really concerned about the security and keeping us safe and all the bullshit, because they've been fed that being an employee is safer, right? Which I think we all learned recently is not really the case. But anyway, I'm not going to get into it. But also, you know, something that I see a lot in my family and in probably you saw in people that were saying all these things to you about, you know, why you shouldn't leave. And in my other clients' families and whatever, is it's their own limitations on what they believe is possible being projected out onto us. And again, in an attempt to keep us safe. But like my dad says to me, he's like, when I was, you know, getting started in coaching and started in manifestation and mindset, even like, it's not even, you could argue there's no real tangible result, not at the get-go at least, right? And he's like, that's hard because you're kind of selling an idea, even. You're not even selling like a tangible, like a product. And I was like, yeah, I know. And he's like, man, he's like, I believe in you. I know you can do it, but not for me. There's no way that I could be an entrepreneur. And I was like, no, and that's fine. You know, but I did appreciate that, at least in my case, my parents were like, look, I don't get it. I couldn't do it, but you know, I believe you're determined. So I believe that you can do it. But you know, my parents-in-law, not the same situation, you know? And I know a lot of people that I deal with, their parents don't agree, or their spouses don't agree, or whatever. And that's tricky. But like you say, you have to be integral to who you are and what you need. Otherwise, what's the point? Like, what's the point? There, like you say, you're going to end up, maybe not everybody goes to addiction, but I can definitely see why the cause is always an underlying a lie of you're rubbing up against who you should be with who you want to be, or who you think you should be with who you want to be, and it just causes all this friction, and then, you know, only disaster can come from that.
By the way, spoken as a true financial professional, let me tell you all the big secret that especially is a problem for women. This is like an epidemic with women. Ladies, if you're listening, please pay attention. If you didn't listen to anything else, listen to this. There is no such thing as security. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as security. This security that women desperately seek doesn't exist. There is no such thing as security. There is only risk management. That's it. There's only risk management. So for example, you can't protect your child. He could get struck, God forbid, with whatever. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but I'm saying no parent can control their child from getting a mystery illness, or God forbid, like something happens in the world. You know, there's nobody that can control that. You cannot control that. Just like driving your car or getting on an airplane. Like when you get into your car, you can't possibly know if some lunatic is going to be, you know, drunk driving and all of a sudden, you know, boom, or an airplane falls out of the sky into the freeway. You know, there was this crash, airplane or helicopter crash onto a freeway. You know, there's things happen that nobody can possibly imagine what can happen moment by moment. Right. And so this whole concept of safety, I got to let go of that fantasy of that there's a secure job or a secure relationship. Even the most secure relationship, people die, you know, of whatever, old age, of heart attack, or who knows. So if I can let go of this false sense of control, I'm powerless. I'm powerless over people, places, and things. I'm powerless over the economy. I'm powerless over the state of the world. But what I'm not powerless over is who I'm going to be in the face of the circumstances that life presents me. And what I can do is I can ask myself every day, am I doing everything in my power to keep myself and my family safe to the best of my ability? Am I wearing my seatbelt? Is my car serviced? And do I know that it's safe to drive? Am I a defensive driver, and am I awake and alert when I'm on the road? Do I have that awareness? Take action with integrity and leave the results to the universe. And that's a surrendered life. But people want to be invested in this fantasy of control, that I'm going to protect somebody, or I'm going to make that. No, you're not. And if you live a lie, I don't care if you're not in addiction, you're going to drop dead of a heart attack or cancer or fibromyalgia or some mystery illness, because nobody can live a lie and stay healthy and well and have a positive outcome. So it doesn't happen like that. It'll manifest in your body, if not in your mental health.
Right. Yes. Yes. All of it. Yes. Yes. Preach. Yes. So, okay. Like, seriously, just preach. Okay. So Judy needs her own church. Okay. No, seriously. But I will go every Sunday. I will go. No, but seriously, I'm sure that many things you've said today have inspired the women watching. So how can they, I mean, obviously you've got your Instagram handle there at Judy Morris Coaching, so they can find you there, but how can they work with you? Do you have any current coaching spots open? Any, I mean, obviously your book is a great place to start as well on Amazon, but how can people get more of your amazingness? Because God knows we need it.
Yeah, well, if you're at a crossroads in your life, if you've had some sort of a life event and you're looking now to take it to the next level, and you're looking to cause a breakthrough in your career or your personal life, and you're interested in having the miracle method be the vehicle that takes you there, please send me a DM on Instagram, and you can reach me there, and I will be happy to set up a discovery call with you, and we can explore that process. I do have group coaching available and one-on-one coaching available. You can go to my website, judymorriscoaching.com. You can look at my offerings there. I have, again, postings and some videos on Instagram and TikTok, and you can go there to find me. And I'm out to empower and enable people to be fully self-expressed and free. At the bottom of everything that I do is freedom. My person that I adore, and really my spirit person, is Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman was a woman who was a slave in the 1800s, and she got free, and she went back and freed a bunch of slaves. And she literally said to her master that was trying to keep her down, because he was threatening her. He's like, what do you think you're going to find out there? You're going to run. And can you imagine the statistics in those days of a African-American person trying to escape their master? I mean, I can't even imagine. And she looked him dead in the eye and said, I will be free, or I will be dead. And that's how I feel. Like I came incarnated into this lifetime to be free and express and to be my true self and to make that special contribution. And I know each and every one of you has that special contribution to make in the world in whatever way. And if you want that freedom and that ability to be fully self-expressed, I would love the opportunity to speak with you.
Yes. See how amazing she is, you guys? I love her so much. Judy, thank you so much. You're amazing. This whole hour has been amazing. I thank you so much for carving time out of your, incredibly busy schedule to chat with me. This has been amazing. I thank you so much. I hope everybody goes and follows Judy on her various channels and absorbs all her goodness and reaches out to her to have a conversation about how she can help you personally, because I mean, she's an inspiration. What can I say? If nothing else, start with her book, Recovered. You can get it on Amazon. I know you can get the Kindle because I have it. You can get it on Audible, and you can get the hard copy or the paperback, whatever. The physical copy is what I meant. Okay, Judy, thank you so much. I so appreciate it. I will chat with you soon.
Thank you.